Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisco Gaming, and in today's video, sponsored by the makers of Whiteout Survival, I want to talk all about Philly, giving you the guide I wish I had had when I was starting to think about whether or not I would invest in this hero. Because my initial thought was, oh man, I'm so hyped for this hero, I'm going to max it out, I'm going to crush everything in the arena, I'm going to use it everywhere. And then I quickly realized it couldn't do for me what I really thought it would do in the arena, and I realized that it was going to be not cheap to go in and max out the widget on this hero to make it better than Molly, who I already had maxed out. So use the timestamps in this video to jump to whichever part you'd like. In this series that I do about hero guides, I go in and I give you advice on whether or not you should invest in a hero. And among the Generation 2 heroes, I would say Philly is the lowest priority. Above that, you have Flint and Alonso. Both of them I find truly exceptional. And it's not that Philly is bad, it's that she's only an incremental upgrade over Molly, who's very, very easy to get at the start of the game. All right, so with that intro out of the way, and if you're still with me, let's talk about what Philly does, and then we'll talk about her upgrade path and why it is that I sort of felt like, yeah, I started her, but I'm going to skip her for the most part. And then we'll share some final thoughts at the end. So, up first, we have the exploration skills, which are in the arena and the exploration game mode. Then we'll talk about expedition. And exploration is kind of wild. Philly's advanced medical training immediately restores health equal to her attack 280% of all friendly heroes. Not the escorts, but the heroes only. This is very powerful in arena if you have multiple sets of equipment, hero gear, okay? If you don't have really good hero gear on all your heroes, chances are that a couple of your heroes are going to expire before she even uses this skill anyways. In fact, in my lineup, where I went and I used either double or triple infantry, what I found is that one or more of my frontline units would already be dead before she used the skill, which meant that at the end of the day, like, it just wasn't hitting for me. Okay. Now, if you have lots of really good sets of gear, it's a totally different story. But remember, Philly's Gen 2. So if you're getting Philly really early on, like, are you going to have lots of good sets of gear? The general advice is that you should really focus in on 3 sets, one for each troop type. That is exactly what I've done. So what I'm trying to tell you is that a healing ability on Philly really pops off if you have lots of things with high levels of gear. Then those things live long enough to enjoy the benefit of the Philly heal. But if some of those heroes start dying off before she's even used a heal, I don't know that the value is really there, and I found in Arena it was not, okay? Now, if we go to the second skill, a Master of First Aid on the point of death, Philly immediately restores health equal to her attack 140% to the weakest friendly hero, and the final skill, poisoning the target, disabling the enemy for 1 second while dealing damage. I do like disable or stun effects. I think those are very powerful in arena especially. They can be extremely disruptive. But what I found is that she was really good as a win more, okay? In other words, if you were already very strong relative to your opponent, she would carry you over the finish line and you'd really dominate. The other way that you do well with her is if your hero gear, again, like I was mentioning, is just really high across the board. It shouldn't be. So I ended up not using her. And it was a bummer because I went in and I, put a bunch of my shards into her. I put a bunch of the books I had at the time into her. And then I was like, darn, GG. Now, in the expedition, Philly, let's see here, gives you 15% attack, 10% defense for all your troops. Second skill, Philly uses her secret tonic to enhance warrior's strength. 25% chance of dealing 200% damage. Philly coats her weapons in a mysterious fungal extract, granting all troops a 20% chance of stunning the target for 1 turn. Molly has that sort of a skill as well, by the way. Right over here, we look at the skills. She's just got it up over here. 20% chance of stunning the target for 1 turn. So anyways, we go back to Philly here, and the thing that you need to know about Philly that does not differentiate her from Molly is specifically the widget. The widget is where we could have had a big differentiator. Molly is a defending hero. Okay, she gives this bonus when you're defending. Philly also does the same thing. Now, Philly is obviously better than Molly. Like straight up, I'm not saying Philly's not better. I'm just saying you need to basically have her maxed out to be better than Molly. It's incremental in the nature of the upgrade. And for me, what I realize is I need to reallocate all that spending to other things. Even though I got kind of close on the widget, 6 out of 10, I suppose I could take it to the finish line. And maybe I should. To be determined, okay? So what do these skills say? Well, for exploration, if you have the widget maxed, Philly has done much to raise the strength of her herbal skills, increasing their healing effects by 70%. She just becomes a better healer, which seems great to me. Move all in on the plan. And then the next skill over here gives all troops 15% health when you're defending. Now remember, this is a multiplicative bonus, okay? This is very important to understand. This does not mean that health goes from 500 to 515%. It means that when you're defending and are attacked by an enemy, your health is going to go from 500%, and I'm just making that number up, just helping you understand, but you're going to go from like 500% to 575%. It's a 15% multiplier on your stat enhancement, which is kind of insane. I know it's not exactly like that, but directionally, that is correct, okay? And I can show that to you in logs, by the way, even though it won't be her exact widget. If I go to a war recently, here I am defending, I believe. And in this situation, I can go to the buff section right over here. Enemy troop defense enhanced by no. Actually, none of these skills applied to me in this situation. Maybe I was attacking? Let's see. I should have some big stat bonuses here coming from my heroes. Let me find something else here. Let me do one of these starred reports. It'll be a little bit easier without having to study it very much. Okay, there we go. There we go. So in this report, I am the defender. I reinforced an ally who was getting attacked, and I was protecting their city, literally like save their life here. And not a big deal. Slight work. Down over here, the 15% defender troop lethality is coming from Molly. All right. And that's from her widget right over here. Defender troop lethality. That's the same way the bonus is going to apply on the Philly. Okay. It's going to show up in that way. Now, that is very powerful. Okay. There's just like no doubt about it. Philly is an upgrade from Molly. The challenge here is how much of an upgrade. And if it's incremental in nature, health is definitely better for defending, in my opinion, than it seems like a stat like lethality or attack is. But in order to really understand, what would it take to want to upgrade from the Molly to the Philly? Let's go look at some charts here and compare some numbers. And these are available in my Discord server, linked in the description, but let's pull them up real quick. Okay, so this chart helps compare the stat difference between heroes of different generations. And in case you didn't realize, the later generation heroes have more and more stats. In fact, if we zoom in to the area we're most interested in here, Molly, you're going to be getting free to play, but it's a 16-ish% lift of stats going from Molly to Philly. And what it says over here is the sort of guidance is Gen 2 starts to establish the general rule of a 20% upgrade per gen. But note that defense stats are the same as the purple tier, which is kind of interesting. Philly introduces our first healing hero. I did not find this to be particularly compelling in Arena, personally. Okay. Now, when we look at heroes, it's important to also understand how a hero stacks up, not only against the prior gen, but for the next gen, right? Should I invest in this hero or something else? And this is where the something else really comes through, because I was told the best hero to invest in Gen 3 is right over here. It's Mia. Mia is an attacking hero. It's an additional 26.6% lift over the Philly. So if you skip Philly, okay, the jump from Molly to Mia is going to be a really big deal. Very meaningful boost in stats here. And on top of that, she's an attacking Lancer. I'm told that you end up using her through like Gen 6. In addition, You get her through lucky spins. Free to play or pay to win, you can get her that way. It's a great outlet for gems. Whereas Philly is SVS prep, KOI, and the daily special offer. She's far more expensive to obtain. Okay, so the sort of net, the conclusion here that I take from this chart is, yeah, Philly is very skippable. Not only was that a player sentiment, but when you start to look at the data, it does feel that way. Okay, and when I say a hero is skippable, that just means I reallocate or focus what spending or in-game resources I have in a different way, okay? Now, if we look in over here, this chart is showing us what it would take to upgrade from a hero you already have. And this is so important to understand. In order to upgrade from Molly, you would need to have Philly completely maxed out and the widget to 9 for it to be an upgrade. And that is when I realized, oh, right. This is such an incremental upgrade in nature to go from Molly to Philly. Rip Chiscool. Whereas to go from Molly to Mia, over here you can see you only need to get the 4 stars and level 8 on the widget, and it's better. So that's why I'm kind of all in on the Mia plan at this point. And if you have Philly, by the way, completely maxed out, she'll still be better for defending than Mia will be. Straight up. If you're defending, use Philly. If you're attacking, use Mia. I'm told she's the GOAT for the bear trap for a really long time. So I'm going to work on her. To upgrade from Philly to Mia, you're looking at 4.5 stars or snowflakes and level 9 on the widget for it to be considered an upgrade. But also, if you're attacking, then it's just an upgrade. Probably sooner, I would guess. So that is how I interpret the information from this chart. But let me tell you something from my personal experience, okay? And let me jump back in game to share this. Shout out if you made it like 10 plus minutes into this Chiscool Gaming video. Consider subscribing. Here's the real gem of value, the real reason, the most compelling reason to skip Philly is that the most important thing, in my opinion, in this game is SVS, state versus state. And you only get your first state versus state at the very end of Philly's lifetime. So what that means is that you only get one SVS with Philly before Gen 3 shows up. At least that was the case for us. And at that point, I probably want to be using a lot of Gen 3, right? The difference, of course, is Molly is in fairness, like not as good as Philly, but close. And Mia is an attacker, not a defender. Like, I get it. I get that there's differences. But like, what I'm trying to say is, if I'm going to move in on a hero and really spend out to get them and max them, and I want to have the most relevant time horizon possible where they are the meta, the best of the best. So when a new gen shows up starting from like Gen 3 on, I expect that we're getting like 3 SVSs with that hero before we start to get new heroes. Well, yeah, if I'm going to max a hero and I get 3 SVSs worth of value, I feel like I'm getting some value out of that, right? Whereas 1 SVS of value out of Philly, given that it's an incremental upgrade over the Molly, that's where I think my biggest realization was, where I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it. So it didn't move the needle for me in Arena. It was an incremental upgrade in nature in SVS, and I only got 1 SVS before Gen 3 showed up. And I'm like, okay. Now, in fairness, keep in mind, sure, I only got 1 SVS, but also remember, the next hero is not a defender. Like, Mia's not a defender. So technically, I will actually get multiple additional SVSs where Philly would be meta to defend with, in fairness. But in my state, my role is not as the top dog anyways. I'm like number 7 in the pecking order at this point. So I don't actually need to have the best garrison in the kingdom, which is great news. Everything I would have spent toward Philly, I can spend on things that are more permanent, like hero gear, right? Like chief gear, chief charms. So I basically have reallocated for the time being, and that's been my strategy. All right. If you found the video helpful, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. I do think that Philly is obviously a strong hero, but again, when evaluating hero, you need to look at, what do I already have? And how good is the hero actually? And what comes after that hero? And it's the combination of those three things that I'm really starting to emphasize in my guides that I think is really valuable. You could also look at how do you get them. And she's tougher to get from the daily special offer, SVS prep, and also KOI. All right. King of Icefield, right? To get that right? Anyways, the roll icon here, subscribe. I've been having a fun journey in the game, still very much enjoying it. Hit VIP 12 recently, which is pretty cool, and I am 114 days in. And hopefully we get an SVS sometime soon. We actually have an event right around the corner. Oh yeah, King of Icefield. I did get it right. And like, I don't even really do KOI because I'm saving for SVS prep because I want us to win that. So it's like, I don't know, whatever. We do have some events coming up though. I've never done Canyon Clash, so kind of hyped for that. So consider subscribing because a video for that one's right around the corner. And I am going to do an Alonzo guide as well. So Gen 2, another one of those guides cooking up really soon. You enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here, subscribe. Until next time, you have fun, smash your enemies, and check those videos right over here. I picked these videos out for you. Enjoy them, all right?